Alex, hey, it's fantastic to see you. Really excited to connect, and especially off of the heels of some of the recent news that I saw last week about a big acquisition that Juniper Square just did in the private credit space. So I'd love to just hear a little bit more about that to get us started.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, John. Good to see you again. So last week we announced the acquisition of Tenor Digital, which is a private credit software automation platform. And private credit is the fastest growing segment of the private markets. It's just exploded post Dodd-Frank over the last decade or so. So this is fund managers making direct loans, to businesses like Juniper Square or in real estate transactions and so forth. Moody's estimates that this segment's on track to reach $3 trillion by 2028. And to give you a sense of scale, more than 2x the capital last year, 2024, was raised in private credit as venture capital. So it's a really big segment of the private markets universe. It's growing really quickly. The product of private credit, which provides current income or yield, enables liquidity, which is really important for fund managers who want to tap into the retail high net worth segment. So that's sort of the perfect product for the opportunity set of where capital is coming from for the industry. So as you know, for Juniper Square, if your listeners don't know, we're a fund operations partner to 2,300 private markets GPs across all segments and asset classes. We provide them fund administration services. We provide them technology to run and operate their funds, everything from CRM to treasury to compliance to reporting. And then we help them with data. And so for us, this was an important addition to our stack, our suite of software and services capabilities to be able to support our customers and kind of where the opportunity is.
Got it. So Tenor, it's really a software piece. It's not a fund admin piece. Did I get that right?
Yeah, we already have the fund admin services operation. We have dozens of people in our private credit team, tremendous expertise from the industry. So we have the experts that provide the services layer. The thing about private credit is it's a different set of needs than a traditional equity fund manager might have. So it's a different set of software capabilities required than, say, what a venture fund manager would need, because you're making loans and you're collecting interest and you're sending out notices and you've got all this complex accounting around the loans. And so the traditional software systems that have been developed to support private markets funds, generally equity funds, don't really provide a solution for private credit. And so we had been on the hunt to either build this ourselves or try to find a compelling technology solution in the market. And Tenor Digital was founded by some of the ex-Investran team. Investran is owned by FIS. It's sort of the default general ledger in private markets. Like if you throw a dart at a top 300 PEI manager, it's like a 90% likelihood they're going to have Investran running inside of the shop. It's what we use inside of our fund admin business. But it doesn't support private credit. So we needed a technology solution. And so Tenor, coming out of Investran, being part of that founding team, growing that business, but then founding Tenor just a couple of years ago. So they're sort of an AI native company with a lot of interesting applications of AI in and around loan management. It was a compelling fit for what we were looking for.
And on the AI side, I know that's been a big focus, certainly, of a lot of the messaging and product releases you've had lately with Junie AI. So what would be a specific example with Tenor where you said, hey, if there's a lot of interesting AI pieces, like, is there one you could point at and say, hey, they have this really great AI use case for X, and what is X?
Sure. So one of the things you have to do if you're administering a private credit fund is every time the fund manager makes a new loan to a borrower, there's a credit agreement that comes in. And it's these credit agreements can run 300, 400, 500 pages. These are not simple little agreements. They're just these incredibly complex, very
worse than an LPA.
Worse, yeah, totally.
I didn't think that was possible.
Turns out having the first lien position, stacks up the paperwork quite a bit. So traditionally, inside of fund managers, like there are fund managers that have teams of hundreds of people, where all they do every day, they come into work, they open up that day's credit agreement, They spend all day long. This is what they do all day long, processing that credit agreement, reading it, extracting certain variables from it, like the interest rate shall be X, or the covenant shall be Y, and then extracting that data from a document, putting it in a structured ERP relational database for tracking, and sort of getting the asset of the loan instantiated in the system. And that kind of use case is just perfect for LLMs, right? So LLM's only going to get it 80% right, but going from 0 to 80% and having the telemetry and all the software for a human reviewer to say, yep, looks like the LLM did a right job, takes this process that used to be a day per agreement down to minutes per agreement. And then we've got the software infrastructure to keep humans in the loop, so that it has to be right. You don't want like a four eyes check on this type of data. So this pairing of the power of LLMs with the accuracy requirements of private markets, and then owning the ERP where the data goes into, is sort of a perfect fit for how we can support our customers in both technology, data, and fund administration services.
And what is that 20% if you look across now the credit side of what you do and the venture side of what you do and these big, huge LPAs or credit agreements? What's the 20% where it's like, hey, you know what, the machine, we're not going to have the machine do it. Like it always has to be those human eyes.
Well, I think it's more that the machine does 100% of the work, but only gets it 80% right.
I see.
And so these models have come a really, just tremendous distance in a very short period of time. You can do incredible stuff with prompt engineering. The context windows are growing. The model capabilities themselves are getting so much stronger. Nevertheless, when you have something like a multi-100-page credit agreement and you have hundreds of variables, that the model has to hold in attention and understand which variables go with what, and we reach the limitations of what these models are capable of, so they get confused and they misattribute things, or they extract the wrong data points from the wrong place. And so it's more that you got to have a human in the loop to validate and make sure that you're 100% right 100% of the time. And that's kind of there's a bunch of those use cases throughout our fund admin operation.
Got it. So if we take a step back and think about recent acquisitions that Juniper Square has done. So earlier this year, you acquired, I believe it was a fund administration company in Luxembourg.
Correct.
Did I get that right?
That's correct.
And now you've acquired this software company focused on private credit.
Yeah.
So how do you, as CEO of a platform like Juniper Square, how do you think about when the right buy decision is related to software or tech versus when it's related to more kind of people centric, I guess, when you think about something like, hey, we're going to go buy this fund administration shop?
Well, I think in any case, it starts with the customer and really understanding what does our customer need and want from us, where are they trying to take their business, and how do we best support them. So in both of these cases, our move into Luxembourg or our move into private credit, it starts with our customers saying, hey, our next fund is going to be a private credit fund, or our nth fund is going to be private credit, or hey, we really want to give you our North America fund administration business, but we'll only do that if you can also support our Luxembourg-based vehicles. So we're very customer centric as a company. That's who we pay attention to. We try to understand our customer needs very deeply, and then once we understand what a customer needs from us, then it's a question of build versus buy. And if you look at the Luxembourg example, the process of getting set up as a fund administrator with the licensure and the regulatory approvals from scratch is a multi-year, very expensive and painful process. You also have to build all of the staff, from the ground up. And so it is very appealing if you can find, as we did in Fourstone Luxembourg, now Juniper Square Luxembourg, a team that already has the licensure. They've come up, they've built a business, they have customer credibility, they have the expert staff in Luxembourg required. And so that acquisition made sense to speed time to market. And the same thing is true, different application, it's technology versus services. But the same concept is true with this Tenor Digital acquisition of how do we support our customers faster? And if we can find a really great technology solution that's been built, then we'll integrate it. And if not, then we'll build it ourselves. We're going to spend $250 million in R&D over the next 5 years, just focused on fund operations automation. So we will continue to develop the vast majority of our own technology capabilities, but we'll always be on the hunt for these pockets to introduce new capabilities faster. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we do more M&A, but it's not, we don't set out looking for companies to buy. We set out trying to solve customer problems.
Got it. And not an acquisition, but another strategic sort of move I saw recently as well is NASDAQ Ventures, it looks like, followed on, or not followed on, but added to the big Series D.
That's right.
That you announced in June. So yeah, I was curious about that too, just from the perspective that that's not related to private credit, right? It's not related necessarily to venture. That's more of a kind of a public market brand. So yeah, what obviously all money is green. It's great to get a little more capital in, but what was the strategic value there specific to Juniper Square to get NASDAQ involved?
So NASDAQ, everyone knows them, of course, for their exchange that runs by the same name, right? But it's actually a very interesting, big, complex business where they have a lot of private markets infrastructure, even though they're known as a public company. They've developed a number of their own data and technology solutions. They've made quite a number of acquisitions in this space. And so they have both software offerings for private fund managers. They have market services offerings for private fund managers, so the ability to run compliant secondaries exchanges, for example, or I think they've got the ability to run ATSs in like 130 countries around the world. And so when we set out and we look at our long-term agenda, our company is about making the private markets more efficient, transparent, and accessible. We've had that founding mission since 2014. And so we're not just a fund administrator. We're not just a technology provider. We're really aiming to transform how the private markets operate, make them much more like the public markets in terms of efficiency and the market system, market function, and all of that. And so NASDAQ's been this amazing partner as we've gotten to know them over the last year, because a lot of their capabilities, they've got a tremendous brand supporting market infrastructure. They've got incredible data products in something called Market Lens, which we're integrating with. It's a Preqin competitor, but many of our customers, having used both, find the data in Market Lens to be much deeper and more actionable. And so our initial focus with them in partnership is around bringing their data products into our platform. But we see opportunities over time to collaborate on how we bring secondaries, how we bring liquidity to the private market system, where today, once you invest in a venture fund as an LP, you're typically locked up for 10 to 15 years. And so we're really excited about what we can build together in the years ahead. And I think as AI proliferates, we're going to see a, kind of like blurring of the lines between what is software, what is data. It's really going to be about these AI systems helping you do work more effectively, whether that's in traditional ERP software like Juniper Square, leveraging data from companies like NASDAQ. And so whether it's with Preqin or NASDAQ, our view is anywhere there's compelling private markets data from third parties, we want to bring it into our platform for our customers.
Shifting gears a little bit and kind of drilling down on the AI piece, I've seen recently, you've been talking a lot about at Juniper Square, how you can get the team to really lean into using AI, off the shelf AI even, to kind of help them just like do their jobs, right? Be more efficient, things like that. And I've seen you talking a lot about that recently. And I'm curious for you, and this comes from me also as a CEO founder, like, are there one or two use cases that you find yourself using personally that you just find really powerful, time saving, et cetera, with ChatGPT or Claude or any of the kind of off the shelf LLMs?
I mean, for me personally, as a CEO, I would say that it's easier to sort of find and label specific aspects of my job where LLMs have not had a transformative impact than to catalog all the areas where they have. And so I can just kind of pull out a couple of examples for you where I found it really compelling. But so, for example, one of my main jobs in the organization is to set the standard for quality, for accountability to performance, and one of the ways that I do that is giving people feedback when say quality is not where it should be, or where I see an opportunity for improvement. And I'm very short on time, as we all are. And so, what I think it was Ben Franklin who said, if I had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter, right? And so one of the challenges for somebody in my position is, wow, I see an opportunity to give someone feedback here, right? I want to say something to John, and I really only have like 2 minutes. And if all I have is 2 minutes, then that's going to be curt and it's going to be very limited context. And I'm not going to do the right service to John and give him all the information he needs to kind of make sense of this. So I'll go to an LLM and I'll say, I'm going to give feedback to John. Here's the context. And by the way, the LLM now, I've been using it for a long time. So it has all of this context on everyone I work with and the company. And it really, really knows me. And, say, great, bring up everything we know about John. And we're going to give him this latest installment of feedback. And here's my short, 3-line burst of that. Let's now unpack that into something that's useful for John, so you can really contextualize where I'm coming from, why I'm delivering this feedback, how to incorporate it. And then I will share that output with the person I'm giving the feedback to. And it's so much more effective than me giving someone 2 lines of feedback, and it costs me the same amount of effort. So that's just like one example, but literally every facet of my job, everything I do that's not in person, face to face with people in meetings, which is a lot of it, has been touched in some way by an LLM for sure.
And so the context you mentioned, certainly the various chats that you've had in the LLMs, right? Those I guess you're saving or they're being saved. But it sounded like you also have company context coming in from other sources, maybe systems within the company. I'm just kind of curious, what are those additional data sources that are particularly helpful for you as the CEO to make sure that those do get that the LLMs are integrated or are able to look at those as well?
Well, I mean, there's sort of like my personal use as a CEO. There's how we are sort of incorporating models into our structural business processes as a company. And then there's how we are incorporating models into our software stack to better serve our customers. And those are sort of like 3 different deployments and 3 different use cases. And so for my personal use, I don't set up a lot of infrastructure to feed the models data, because most of our infrastructure effort and work goes into those points 2 and 3 I made of either core business processes or our supporting our customers. I will say I did do a kind of classic wake up moment vibe coding project over a weekend, just to see if I could build an app to support the delivery of this feedback to my direct reports and their direct reports and so forth. And that was this spring, and it was a really critical moment for me of opening my eyes to the potential productivity unlock in building software, and just being able to go from an idea to working code and working prototype. And so that was a powerful experience for me as a CEO, that then it gave me the confidence to come back to the organization and say, we are going to transform around this technology. We are, there's no turning back.
How did that affect how you thought about, when you're getting estimates from, product and engineering, right, in this new world versus say a year ago? How do you find yourself engaging with the team when you're getting those kinds of estimates based on now what you kind of know and have experienced with AI?
Well, I think it's really important to take into account the entirety of the software development lifecycle when thinking about where AI is having a huge productivity boost. And there's a lot of companies out there, Satya Nadella touts this, Microsoft, there's a lot of companies like, oh, X% of our code is being written by AI now. And to me, that's sort of like a pretty random vanity, kind of almost foolish metric to look at. Because really what you care about at the end of the day is how much customer innovation am I shipping per unit of time and resource. And so where we've seen transformative impact, like 10x type impact from AI, is in this phase of going from idea to working prototype. And that you just see these unbelievable speed ups, right? Just like I've got something in my head and I'm going to translate it into working code. And we see, I would say, more modest on the order of like 30% type speed ups in the great. I've got a working prototype, and now I need to ensure that it meets our code quality standards and integrates with the rest of the application well. And that still requires a lot of human intervention when you're not building greenfield, when you need to insert code into an existing software system. And so I try to just be mindful of that when engaging with the teams of you can't demand a 10x speed up on, let's say, code review if where the technology is giving the boost is in prototyping, right? But yeah, I mean, the world is changing quickly. It's pretty exciting. So I'm sure what I'm saying will be out of date, 6 months from now.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm always interested to hear how other founders and CEOs use this stuff. One more question. Carta was also busy in the private credit space this past week related to an acquisition of I believe it's called Servatus. And I'm curious, from that perspective, obviously it's another player in the space. I don't know how long you were looking in that space or sort of how the process went, but I'm just, excuse me, I'm just curious how you think about that acquisition. Is it, sort of validation of your strategy? Is it actually maybe a different strategy? It just seems like it's similar. I'm curious how when you saw that hit the press, what you thought about it.
Yeah, so they announced their acquisition 2 days after we announced ours, which I think was just pretty funny coincidence, to be honest with you. The honest answer is we tend to really be focused on our customers. We have an eye on what our competitors are doing, but we really try to spend all of our energy on deeply understanding our customers and sort of charting a course to solve the problems that they tell us that they have. And that's where things like our push into private credit or the acquisition of Tenor come from. They don't come from, oh my gosh, some competitor made some move, so what's our answer to that move? So we try to have our eye on what our competitors are doing. But I would say, if anything, it's just sort of validating the fact that two different companies have made moves in the same area around the same time, of just how quickly private credit is growing within the broader private markets ecosystem, both in terms of dedicated private credit fund managers and traditional equity fund managers that are raising credit strategies and sort of bridging into credit. But look, we've been doing this since 2014, focused on private markets GPs. We've got a dozen years now on this problem. So we sort of know the set of what needs to be done, and it's just about executing on our priorities. And if other competitors are doing the same thing we are, then great. That's just further validation that we're on the right path.
Awesome. Alex, thank you so much.